What is going on, NBA fans and Nuggets Nation? I'm Tom Leuthner. Welcome back into Nuggets Today. We have some topics to cover here. Obviously, I've been doing my research throughout the entire offseason, looking at potential people that Denver should pick up, and looking at moves that Calvin Booth had made and put Denver in the position that they need to win. I'm just kidding, obviously. Calvin Booth put Denver in probably the worst position in the NBA. Close to it when it comes to contract, money, picks, all that. Obviously not the worst position when it comes to record. That's obviously the Wizards. The Spurs were up there. They had a lottery pick, but they're still in a good position to win, I think, next year. But the one thing that he did is get DaRon Holmes. Now, in hindsight, it might look like a great move, but DaRon Holmes needs to work. He can't maybe work a little bit for what Denver gave up because of Calvin Booth for DaRon Holmes. He needs to work, right? So let's go back and look. The offseason that they get DaRon Holmes, they want to back up Jokic. They go out, trade up to draft a center, which is fine. I'm happy with that. I think DaRon Holmes should be really good. You look at what he was able to do in college. He's a 4 or 5 that can spread the floor. He can shoot a little bit. But they did move up for him. And you look at what they gave up. And they gave up the pick that ended up getting the Suns Ryan Dunn, who was a starter for them, by the way, for a few games this year. And they gave up 2 future seconds. Now, along with that, they also gave up Reggie Jackson and 3 seconds for salary to go sign Dario Saric, who now all they want to do is get him off the books. So while I think DaRon Holmes can be good, there's no option for him to not be good because of what Calvin Booth gave up for him. At this point, he needs to work, and there's no excuse for him not to, because the mastermind of Calvin Booth had to go out and trade all of Denver's picks in order to get him. So now we don't have a single pick this year, and guess what? We lost 5 second-rounders. 5 second-round picks for a guy who missed the entire season. Again, I think he could be good. I think that they do need a backup center. I think Sarge we might have been a year or two late on getting because he didn't work out for Denver. But at the same time, there are some backup centers that are on the market that could work for Denver. So let's hop into this. Obviously, contracts might not work. But we'll break it down. We'll break down. Here's the first person I want to get into. And this is a fantastic backup if he's affordable. Denver has... every team has their one mid-level exception. Do I want to use it on Brook Lopez? No, probably not, right? But that's what I want to talk about. So you look at Brook Lopez. He's more obviously of the mid-level exception than he is rather than a minimum. But I don't know if I'd want to use the mid-level exception on him because he's aging. He's regressed a little bit. And the one thing that I like, but I also don't like, is the fact that he extends the floor. And I know that all we're saying is that we need shooters, right? Denver needs shooters. They need to go out and get a shooter. Seth Curry, Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown, whoever it is. I don't know if I want Denver to get a backup center who's a shooter. When he comes into the game, now you're running a full 5-out set. That means you need somebody that's going to fully attack the rim and then dish it out. Do I want Russell Westbrook back? Sure I do. Do I think he's coming back? I don't know. That's going to be for next episode because the day of this recording, there's some news coming out about Russ, but I already had this episode set up, so we're going to hop into this. We're going to stick with the centers here. I think Brook Lopez is good. Obviously, we've seen him regress pretty bad. He's getting older, and I think there's some options out there that could be better. I like what he could provide for Denver. He could be a shooter. You could also play him with Jokic, which I do like, and his rim protecting, it's fine. But I also think there's guys out there that will fit Denver's needs off the bench more than Brook Lopez will. I think Brook Lopez is going to go somewhere he wants to be a starter, but I think that if Denver wants to use their mid-level exception on him, it's not the worst option in the world. Would I rather give him a minimum than a mid-level exception? I said that, yes, but at the same time, it's not the worst option. So if you're able to go out and get 2 or 3 vets that are guards or forwards, and you're able to bring Brook in on your mid-level exception, then so be it, because then that works out. I think that's a fine move. But if Brook is going to be your mid-level exception, and you're only going to get one guy, maybe not trade Najee, then I'd rather just attempt to develop Najee, even though I know he's not that good, but he could shoot a little bit too. So I think he's a good player. Again, like I said, I'm going to reiterate it. I would rather him be a minimum than a mid-level exception, and I don't know if that would happen. This next player I want to talk about is actually the complete opposite of what we're seeing from Brook Lopez, And that is a smaller big man that can play, but it would be a different kind of lineup being run off Denver's bench. And that is a small ball center in Paul Reed, right? Paul Reed had, second round pick, but he had potential coming into the NBA. He looked promising in the playoffs in a few games that he, obviously there's going to be games where he went out. I think there was a game versus the Knicks where he had 11 minutes, went 0 for 1, I think grabbed 1 rebound, did nothing. But then we saw games against Milwaukee and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis where he went out and he put up 8, 6, and 5. Now, those are good numbers for a bench player in Denver, realistically. That's what you need. If Jokic needs 10 minutes on the bench, 15 minutes on the bench, and you have a backup center giving you 8, 6, and 5, that is perfect. Again, maybe he's not the same kind of player as Jokic. When Mason Plumlee, who's also another guy Denver could go out and get, when Mason Plumlee was there, we saw Mason Plumlee dishing the ball. Maybe he wasn't shooting as much, obviously, but we saw him dishing. We saw him throwing a pass here and there. We saw him playing the high post. That's good. But at the same time, Paul Reed might not be that player, but Denver just needs backup minutes, and that's all. So if Paul Reed can come in and give you legitimate backup minutes, then so be it. That's fine. If he's coming out and giving you 8, 6, and 5 here and there as a backup center, that's what you need. All Denver needs is a few points, a few rebounds, and legitimate minutes that aren't just going to be drastic to their obviously Jokic's time off the floor. He was averaging 4, 3, and 1 this season, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, but he was only playing 9.7 minutes a game. Again, I don't think an average of 4, 3, and 1 is the worst thing in the world if you're going to go out and give this guy a minimum contract. Like I said, he also may be a mid-level exception, but he's on the younger side, and Denver may be able to get him for a cheap contract because the Pistons got Stewart and Duren unless they're trading one of them, and what other team is seeking a starting center? That's not going to be Paul Reed. I mean, maybe the Lakers could bring him in. Maybe the Suns could bring him in. But he's probably not going to start. I mean, maybe he starts on the Lakers and he takes the money because they give him a role. But at the same time, I think Denver can make a legit case to go out and get him. The last guy I want to talk about is a defensive rebounding center. And that is, in my opinion, who I wanted last year as well, the perfect backup for Jokic. And I believe he's a minimum contract player. I don't see him getting the mid-level exception. That is Andre Drummond. Now, in the absence of Joel Embiid, he looked great, right? For what he is now. Obviously, he's not looking like Detroit Pistons Andre Drummond, but for what he is now, he looked great, right? In the 18.8 minutes he played, he averaged 7 points, 8 rebounds rather. That's fine. That's what you need for a backup center. He won't be playing 18 minutes in Denver probably, but at the same time, he can not only be Jokic's backup center, but he can start if Jokic needs a day off. If he can start with Jokic if they want to switch the lineup up. So the only thing that I saw from him this year, which I wasn't too happy about, is the fact that he was shooting threes. And I know it's because maybe he's in Philadelphia. No offense to Philadelphia, but they were a joke this year. So why not attempt to expand your game and shoot the three ball? I wouldn't want to see that in Denver. But at the same time, I see a guy who can still go out and get rebounds. I see a guy that can still go out, 2-3 shots here and there. He's going to make them, put the ball back, have a decent shooting percentage. That's what Denver needs. They don't need somebody to come in and fully dominate the game, realistically. They just need somebody, like I said, that can come in and give them backup minutes. And I think that Andre Drummond is the best fit, realistically, for a year or two. Like I said, Deron Holmes is there. He could shoot. We saw that. Peyton Watson could shoot. That's fine. But and going back to Paul Reed, I know Drummond's, maybe he's a huge body, but he's a little bit shorter. Going back to Paul Reed, Denver played a small ball lineup, but they didn't have beefy bodies in there like they would with Drummond and Paul Reed. They had a taller, lengthy guy, I guess, in Peyton Watson, and they can use the beefy body who can give you 7 and 8. Anyway, that's all I got for the center talk. Like I said, there's a pretty big update that is coming out next episode, so stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you guys soon, Nuggets Nation.